My name is Lena Jeong, and I am the author of And Break the Pretty Kings, which is a story about a Korean crown princess who is trying to rescue her brother from an ancient evil.
Author Lena Jeong has just released her first book, which celebrates her Korean heritage. Her debut book, And Break the Pretty Kings, will take you on an exciting adventure to save the queendom while fighting a terrifying enemy. Hi, I'm Gemma, and welcome to the red carpet. We have the author of And Break the Pretty Kings here to discuss her debut novel. Hi, Lena. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm so excited. Your book features a Korean princess set to inherit the queendom, but first, she has to prove herself worthy to rule. I loved how Mireille was such a fierce character who was motivated to protect her people and also her family. To start, can you tell us about your book?
Sure. My book is about a Korean crown princess who has to save her older brother, who she loves so much, from an ancient evil that has been unleashed on the queendom. So it's a coming-of-age story of her just trying to figure out how to use her powers and how to deal with family secrets, all of which are wrapped up in this monster that she has to defeat.
Your book was such a thrilling ride for me. Your book also has a pretty unconventional title. What is the meaning of And Break the Pretty Kings?
That's a great question. It's actually inspired from a line that I found in an Arthurian text from like the Legend of King Arthur. I do not remember which text it was, but the line really spoke to me. And because this book was partially inspired by Arthurian myth, I just kind of took that line and adapted it a little bit. So that's where it came from. And it's really about kind of breaking down the patriarchy and a young queen, a princess coming into her own.
Oh, wonderful. I love breaking down the patriarchy.
Same.
Your book is inspired by Korean legends as well and mythology. Could you tell us more about these stories that you drew upon?
Sure. So I was actually really inspired by some of these books that my mother brought with her from Korea when she immigrated. And so I just had these children's books with Korean monsters and myths and whatnot. And they just really inspired my imagination and made me want to become a storyteller to begin with. And I wanted to write a story that I needed as a young Korean American teen, showing a Korean princess with magic and powers that were based on Korean mythologies. So they were inspired by books that I read as a kid.
Oh, fascinating. I'm so happy that you were able to share that as well, because I think a lot of people would not be able to access such stories. So you writing them into this book gives more opportunities for more people to read them. Your main character, Mireille, is a princess with unique powers, and she must stop an oncoming war. How did you come up with this concept?
I was actually really inspired by some shows that I was watching, and a little bit with the conflict between, say, like North Korea and South Korea, a nation divided. And so obviously it's not the same as what happened historically, but it's just something that's really top of mind for Korean storytellers, and it's just a big part of our history. So that's partially what inspired this idea of a war-torn peninsula that has more of a ceasefire than peace.
Thank you for that. One of Mireille's gifts is visions of the future. How did you use time as a plot device?
So this idea of time travel was actually inspired by me watching shows or reading books and wondering what it would be like if there was a character who could not just see the future, but go to the future and switch places with themselves, and how that would complicate things. And so I used that as a storytelling device to amp up the tension and to create even more conflict between someone who wants to save people and thinks she knows how, but doesn't quite understand what the visions mean.
That was one of the most interesting points of the book for me, was just we see point A and we see point B, and now we have to connect the dots to get there. I also noticed that Mireille means future, so that was interesting for me.
Yes.
The book also features a number of characters who support Mireille on her journey, and each of their motivations were quite interesting to me. Can you talk about crafting these people and giving them their roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they came to me almost exactly the same way that they ended up in the final draft. I knew that there was going to be a really fun younger brother who's the heart and soul of the moral heart of the entire group, and I knew I wanted a woman who would be a mentor figure to Mire. And I also knew that I wanted there to be some romantic interests. And so just knowing that I wanted these roles to be in the book to help push Mire and help her to find out who she really is, what she really believes, and find out who she, stay true to her morals. So wanting these kinds of themes surrounding Mire, and then also having these characters just kind of already come to me as a package deal, it actually fell into place pretty naturally.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think that like all communities, we are also supported by the people around us. So to see that she had so many characters that were supporting her so strongly, like that also like really warmed my heart. What is something that you hope the reader will take away after reading this book?
I hope that they will feel more empowered to question the things that they are told from their community, even from family, from different leaders, but to really not just take everything at face value because, history is told by the people who end up on top. And that may not be the complete truth. And so I hope that they walk away learning what Mire ultimately learns, which is that you need to find out what is true and what is good for yourself.
Yeah, that's something that is also very relevant today. Like we hear things from the news, but we also have to do our own research to make sure that what we are being told is accurate.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you share a memory that you had while writing this book?
Sure. I think the best memory, the one that comes to mind first, is discovering this is kind of random, but discovering my love of matcha tea. Matcha, I've never had it before, but as I was doing research into the Korean countryside and whatnot, and then started including this, the landscape of green tea fields and whatnot, it made me very curious and helped me to connect to that part of my heritage that I had never really indulged in before. And now I'm a matcha fan. I love it so much.
What, speaking of matcha, one of the things that I also realized this year is I also kind of like matcha. I know people say oh, it tastes like grass, it tastes like earth. Well then, moo, I'm a cow.
Same.
Going deeper into the Korean mythology of the book, there are a number of supernatural creatures featured. What role do they play in the story?
The supernatural creatures I featured were picked very carefully because this was the queendom that Mire is crown princess of. The magic is really hoarded by the people in power, by the matriarchy. And so I didn't want to overshadow that by having, lots of phoenixes and whatnot creatures everywhere. So I picked very carefully, and most of the creatures are more conjured. And so they are meant to assist the queendom, the matriarchy, the women in power. And so one of the most prominent creatures is one that Mire conjures, and it's a rainbow dragon, because I want it to be very inclusive, and I love the idea of a rainbow dragon. And so this creature is kind of symbolic of not just Korean mythology, but also the role of magic itself in this queendom and how that needs to be perhaps challenged or questioned or modified to be more equitable and more fair.
We'd love to see that. And speaking of matriarchy, in your book, women are the rulers of this queendom. I thought it was such a relief to get away from the normal stories that we see ruled by kings. Why did you create a world in which women are in charge?
I think we need more stories that empower young girls. And at the heart of this, my motivation for writing this story was to write the book that the teenage version of me really, really needed. We had a lot of boys who were empowered, boys who were princes and going on adventures or were able to be warriors. And in this case, I really wanted to focus on what it means to empower women and give women, I guess, a chance to have this sort of authority and make mistakes, and I didn't want to make a perfect queendom to say, give women power and we are perfect beings on pedestals. I wanted to more show what it is to have power as a woman in a way that's both aspirational and inspirational, but also to help us learn and grow in a real world sense.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I really appreciated in the book, was just that this was normalized. Nobody questioned why women were in power. They're allowed to make mistakes because men are allowed to make mistakes too. So I really appreciate having, not only were the women in power, but it was just not something that was a bad thing, I suppose.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be good or bad, it just was. And we need to normalize women in positions of power.
Absolutely. One of the driving forces in the book is protecting family. Mireille tries to save her brother, and the enemies are similarly motivated. Can you talk about this theme of family in your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from the very beginning, this story to me was sibling-centric. It was about the love between a sister and her brothers, and I think every draft, like from the very first draft, was about that. And it's not that romance isn't important and isn't something that young readers want to see, but that was just a central theme that I wanted to explore. I think for authors, books are not just creations that you want other people to enjoy. They're also a way for you to express yourself and find out what's important to you and help you learn and grow. And for me, that meant exploring family relationships specifically.
Yeah, obviously family is important, but like always found family, which is why I thought that the cast of characters around Mireille was so important in the book as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's huge for teens. Their friends and acquaintances become their family as well.
Again, the main character and the bad guys have similar motivations in the book. How did you draw the line between what the good guy is and what the bad guy is?
That's a great question, because that is definitely the line that I'm hoping to explore, not just in this book, but in the rest of the series. That it's easy to judge people who only have bad decisions, right? And so to say, oh, you didn't make the right decision when they didn't really necessarily have good decisions that maybe you grew up with. So that's something that I want to explore, is sometimes evil or opposition is created, and trying to humanize people who maybe make decisions that we don't approve of, and to understand where they're coming from. And I think that that's important for young people, especially like Mireille, who's about to become a queen. She needs to understand the various struggles of not just the people she sees and who surround her, so, servants who adore her, but also the people who her queendom may have hurt, and how to make reparations, because in order for that to happen, there needs to be awareness. And in order for that to happen, we have to humanize everyone, not just the people that are in our inner circle. We have to expand our horizons a little bit.
Yeah, by that point of the book where the lines were starting to get blurred, and I was like, oh, maybe they're the bad guy, but maybe they're not bad guy. Who's really the villain here? That was just one of the things that makes me want to read the next book. So I'm very interested in seeing how this is going to play out. There is a romantic interest in the story, but the romantic development is light compared to a lot of other young adult novels. Was this intentional?
Yes, this was very intentional. On one hand, I just, again, writing a book that I needed, while of course I was into, like the cute boys and girls or whatnot, like, oh, you're so cute. But at the same time, as the oldest daughter of an immigrant, oldest daughter of my household, there was also a lot of responsibility, and I wasn't given the same freedoms, like you can say, as maybe some other teenagers who were able to just worry about prom and whatnot. That wasn't something that was really on my radar, and I felt like that was something I related to with Mireille, that as someone who is in a position where she has a lot of responsibility. She has a duty to not just her family, but the entire queendom, that I really wanted to reflect that in the things that concerned her, that she let herself think about, whether or not she wanted to, block out certain things like romance. It's just not something that she was raised to value as much as family and duty and respect and her her traditions and things like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to reflect. And also, I was interested in kind of recreating the K-drama slow burn. So that was very intentional as well.
Oh, well, slow burning. I, again, need to read the sequel then, because like I'm highly invested in this. So I think you did a really good job, especially since the trope slow burn has been, I guess, misappropriated in a lot of recent books these days. So I guess you're reclaiming that and redefining what slow burn is supposed to be.
Yes, this is a romance that is supposed to take place across, the series and not just in one book. So, but you definitely, there's promises of romance. There's going to be romance.
Yeah, I'm excited. You wrote your heritage into this book. What does that mean to you?
It meant a lot to me personally to try to reconnect with something that wasn't as available to me when, it's hard to talk about, but as someone who was born in America and with a mother who wanted me to succeed in America, that meant I wasn't as, she wanted me to conform. She wanted me to assimilate. And when you're surrounded by a certain culture as a child, then of course that you adopt it. It becomes natural and easy to you. But as I started getting older and wanting to, reach back to my roots and understand my identity, reclaim it, decolonize it, as I started getting those sorts of desires, that's when I started going back to looking at Korean mythology and these things that I had taken in as a child, but had mostly forgotten or abandoned because they didn't feel relevant to the culture that I was surrounded by. I didn't think that Korean creatures were as cool as, vampires or werewolves, but they absolutely are. And we just need more stories around, like globally speaking, not just with Korean heritage. We just need more stories like that to introduce these awesome mythological creatures and stories, folk tales, so that all kids feel like they get to be a hero and not just the ones who look like, I guess I won't name any particular characters, but, Katniss Everdeen or whatever. So it was really important to me as someone who is Korean American trying to reclaim my identity and figure out where I came from. So being able to write a story like this for other kids who maybe are in that kind of a headspace or on that journey was very rewarding for me as well.
And I think that a lot of people who are also like children of immigrants or diaspora will also appreciate having the accessibility as well. They may not be able to read the original sources, but having stories like yours gives them a chance to explore their own identity, or maybe identities of other cultures that they would not be able to otherwise.
Yeah, and we shouldn't undervalue the importance of seeing someone who looks like you on a cover of a book, wielding magic and being a hero, or even villains that look like you because, people like Darth Vader more than they like Luke Skywalker. So it's important to be represented in so many different ways, not just in text, but also visually. And so to be a part of that is really meaningful to me.
Yeah, you're normalizing media these days, is how I would put it. Be the change you want to see.
Yes, exactly.
I know you have a master's in fine art for creative writing and started writing at a very young age. What has your writing journey been like?
Well, thankfully, I've improved a little bit since I started writing in the 5th grade. But if you've read my bio, you'll see that I wrote a book about featuring characters named macaroni pizza, because those are just my favorite foods. I had a dragon that was allergic to men. I guess I was fighting the patriarchy even when I was 5. So my journey has been very much just starting off as a very avid reader who was had an active imagination. And it wasn't until high school that when I started reading books that transported me, that were not just an escape from whatever I was dealing with, but also sparked my imagination and made me start creating my own stories in a similar vein. And that's when I decided that I really wanted to explore that and, study that and become a writer and participate in this magical world of creation. So yeah, I started out being an avid reader, then turning into an aspiring creative, and now I'm a published author. So it worked out, thankfully.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people with similar stories to yours are also struggling along their writing journey. So it's also helpful to hear about how even new published authors are going through their struggles and their own journeys as well.
Yes, absolutely. The trick is to keep going. The only people who get published are those who don't stop.
I noticed that your book is a great example of crafting complex and empowered characters and not perpetuating Asian tropes and stereotypes. Can you talk about that for a bit?
Yes, absolutely. This also goes back a little to that idea of the slow burn romance. I didn't want to immediately have my young Korean character be overly sexualized or whatnot. It was important to me that she be a person, a whole well-rounded person. In media, we still have such a big problem with how Asians are represented across the board. And so it was very important to me to not feed into stereotypes with like, I think some of the biggest stereotypes would be like martial arts master and tiger mom and, the myth of the model minority and whatnot. And I just wanted to have a girl who was empowered and without getting the approval necessarily of the Western gaze. That was very, very important to me.
I think you did a great job. I didn't recognize any of those while reading your book, and I just thought it was just so wonderful to have a girl in power, and it was just a normal thing.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that.
Absolutely. Now that your debut novel is out, what are you looking forward to doing next?
I'm really looking forward to some of my projects coming up that I can't talk about, unfortunately, but I'm making a bit of a genre shift, hopefully, and just really doing more of a deep dive into Indigenous Korean beliefs and trying to understand those roots, like way, way back to the beginning, to really start building up my understanding of my ancestry and my heritage. So looking into those things and being inspired by what I'm finding, I'm really looking forward to those next steps with those kinds of projects.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Is there anything not writing related that you're looking forward to doing next?
That is a great question. Oh, yes. Well, this is still kind of writing related, but my partner and I are planning a trip to Korea because I've been to Korea, but not while being able to like go to museums and visit, all palaces and whatnot. So I'm hoping to be able to plan a trip where I get to go and visit these places and see them in person and really just take in the beauty and the history behind a lot of these artifacts and relics. So that's something I'm really looking forward to.
I hope you get to do that soon. Let's manifest it out into the world.
Yes, help me manifest it, please.
I understand that you're a fan of K-pop, and there are also some music videos that provided inspiration for you. Can you tell us some of the songs that really left an impression on you?
Oh, sure. There's so many. I actually have a Spotify playlist, so if you want to see more of those, you can just go to my website and find a full list. But I think actually one that inspired me most was a dance performance performed by stage name N, who is a member of VIX, and he does this contemporary style dance with mixed in with some traditional dance, and it's set to a beautiful song. I wish I could remember the title of it. I don't, but you can find it on my website. And so I think that's the one that inspired me the most with this mix of contemporary and modern artistry, which is what I was trying to accomplish in my book as well.
We'll be sure to check it out. Your new book, And Break the Pretty Kings, was just released this summer in 2023. Can you share with us a line from the book?
Sure. The line that I use when I'm signing, so if you see me in person, you'll get this into your book, is a line that Mire remembers from her grandmother, who said to her, "Never forget the dragons in your blood."
That's such a powerful line. And if you ever go on tour, I hope you come here so that I can come and actually meet you in person.
Thank you so much. I would love that too.
Your book took me on such a roller coaster. I never saw those plot twists coming. Please tell me I'm not the only one. Have you been getting this kind of response from others?
Oh yes, definitely, especially from early readers, especially when they get to the cliffhanger at the end. So this is a series, so there is a cliffhanger. A lot of people were upset with me, some of the plot twists that I had in there. So you were definitely not alone. No, definitely.
Yeah, I think I was in shock for a lot of the ending of the book, which is why I'm so excited to read the sequel. Is there anything you can share with us about that?
Sure, I can tell you that the second book is coming out next year. I don't know if I can share the title yet because it hasn't been officially released, but I've seen the cover art and I'm so excited. So pay attention to my social medias where I'll drop the cover reveals. But this is a planned trilogy. As of now, there's only 2 books that will be coming out. So let my publisher know you want a 3rd book.
Absolutely, I want a 3rd book.
It's on record.
Where can we find your book for purchase?
You can find it anywhere books are sold, especially online. You can find it at Barnes & Noble. You can find it on any of your independent booksellers. Even if they don't have it in store, they can definitely get it shipped in for you.
And where can we find you?
You can find me at my website, which is lenajeong.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter X at the same handle at Lena Jeong Writes.
And I'm already following. My guest today has been Lena Jeong with her book, And Break the Pretty Kings. You can pick it up wherever books are sold. We have loads of other interviews that you can check out from the red carpet. Be sure to click through to our other content and hear from more brilliant writers like this one. I'm Gemma for the K-pop-TV Broadcast Entertainment Network, and I'll see you next time.